Thomas Workman and A.J. Cavanagh are intuitive channels who have a remarkable ability to speak for a spiritual collective they call the Guides. They are unique in that they channel the Guides together, sharing one mind as they deliver messages. The primary interest of the Guides is helping us all live consistently in the state of joy, accomplished through a set of simple practices they call the infinite pathway. The infinite pathway, journey to self-realization.
Hi, I'm Thomas Workman.
And I'm A.J. Cavanagh. Welcome to the Infinite Pathway, the journey to self-realization.
Throughout this series, we'll share messages and insights from the Guides to help us realize our true identity and live our very best lives.
Yes, and as many of you may be sensing, this is a unique time in our evolution. There are exciting and new opportunities for us to grow in our consciousness.
And the Guides offer all of us a chance to reconsider some of our most foundational beliefs and ideas about who we are and why we're here.
Very true. Both Tom and myself actually love to discuss the insights the Guides share with us after our channeling sessions, whether they're for ourselves or for our clients. We've called in the Guides for you now to join with us, and we're aware of their presence all around us.
Yeah, they often like to pop in throughout these discussions. In this case, rather than our being in trance, we'll just let them whisper in our ear as the episode unfolds.
So just so you know, they're right here, gently guiding this conversation.
There's no better place to start our first episode on the infinite pathway than by understanding our eternal nature. Now, just recently, during one of our Conversations with Source monthly online group channelings, the Guides reminded everyone that we are eternal beings who are on an infinite pathway. Let's listen to what they had to say.
We welcome you again to this conversation, so very important, always important, for it is a matter of your existence, a matter of your eternity that we wish to focus your attention on. How challenging at times for you to be caught up instead in the moment and in the particulars and miss the larger image of your lives, of your eternal trajectory, of the pathway in which you as a soul are moving.
So let's break down what they mean by this and what else they want us to understand.
Let's start by explaining the Guides' view of eternity. Now, they talk about, and we just heard them mention, an eternal trajectory or a pathway in which we as souls are moving.
Yes, and seeing ourselves as being on an eternal trajectory is very different from how most of us see our lives.
Right, so let's dig in and start to understand what the Guides mean by this concept of eternity.
Very good.
Now, for me, most of my life, I understood that the person I am in this life is the person I am for all of eternity. In other words, Tom lives, he dies, he goes to heaven, and then we have an eternity of Tom. Well, that's how a lot of people think about this,
They
right?
do.
That we are created when we're born, and then we live and die, and then we become something else, or nothing at all, or we simply spend eternity in heaven or hell, depending on your belief. We really don't think an awful lot about this, and we certainly don't talk about it very much. But what the Guides are suggesting is something very different. They want us to think beyond our current incarnation.
Yes, and that's been my understanding as well, that we have lived before and we will live again. However, that aspect of me, the AJ that you see now, actually does not. When I transition, that aspect of me returns to the eternal part of me that is my soul, and it remains there as an aspect of my soul together with all of my other previous incarnations.
That's right. Let's hear the Guides talk about this a little bit more.
We remind you that who you are, your true being, is not just the incarnated bodies that you use now to inhabit this room. No, who you are is a soul, a spirit, and a light that you are able to see on a regular basis. You may find living right inside the center of you this light. This is you. There you are. This is who you are, and this light exists for eternity. It uses each and every of your incarnations on a pathway towards the realization.
So the truth is, I've been religious most of my life, and really from a Christian tradition, and yet I've never really understood too much about what my soul is because we never talked about it, other than what happened to it after I died and where it went from there. But we never talked about it during my life. And so when I started to develop my gifts and was talking now suddenly to the universe, it was one of my first questions. What is this thing about my soul? Is that me? Am I me? What's me? And I remember one night trying to fall asleep, and I was suddenly given a very clear image right at the center of my being of a pin light, a very bright light with rays flashing out of it. It was small, but it was strong. And at the same time, I heard a voice that said to me, "Ah, there you are." I'll never forget it. In fact, I think about it often, and I return to that image as often as I can whenever I'm confused about who I really am.
What a beautiful story.
Thanks.
So when a soul incarnates, what exactly does that mean? Well, it means that you exist in a body, and you exist in a realm, and you exist in a dimension. Perhaps not Earth, perhaps not this dimension, perhaps not even the third dimension. But your soul has chosen this particular incarnation so that it may experience a unique set of circumstances which allow for the environment to give you optimal expansion and optimal growth for your soul to develop. Now let's share what the guides have to say about this. They say, your soul moves across the journey of eternity and is that which comes in and out of incarnations. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that you are a part of something that is much bigger than your life right now. Your incarnation is actually just one of many, and it's one that is part of your eternal being.
So let's be sure we all understand what we mean by that. When we say that our purpose is to live before and live again, what does that actually mean? And more importantly, was that the way it was designed to be, that we would just keep living before and living again?
Yeah, I mean, these are great questions, and we can certainly talk about this more. But first, let's listen to what the guides have to say.
What is your purpose? Many of you ask, well, why am I here? And the answer is, I'm here to help me realize the true nature of my soul. What was I created to be? For you must understand, you were created to complete an idea that was missing in the universe. You were created as a part of a universal plan. This is your journey over many, many lifetimes. And each lifetime, each incarnation, this very time for you is an opportunity to address and to work with a variety of energies that will ultimately lead to a better understanding of your soul, a better realization. We love this word, realization. A realization of who it is that you are and what it is you were here for and why it is you are created and where you fit in the entire universe.
Well, now I think I get it, and hopefully you do too, that the reason why we titled this series The Infinite Pathway is because it is the journey of self-realization. We often forget who we are, our eternal nature, and the wisdom that comes from that. Every one of our lifetimes, our soul uses every experience to learn a little bit more about itself. So it's with this in mind that we just had to call this show The Infinite Pathway Journey to Self-Realization.
Makes complete sense, and it's such an exciting idea to consider But it can be a little bit difficult to wrap our minds around us being infinite souls when we have so much to take in of our daily lives right now. I don't know every one of my past lives, but I do feel I have glimpses into some of them.
Well, let's talk about that, because you've mentioned to me several times a memory about one of your lives in ancient Egypt.
Yes. Actually, it was a time during the 18th dynasty, and I was a high priest in the ancient city of Bubastis.
Wow. What do you think the purpose of that life was? What were you meant to learn during that lifetime?
Yeah, well, that was a good question. And, I don't exactly know. But what I do know is that incarnation, like every other one of my incarnations, was about my soul learning to discover an aspect of myself which had not yet been fully developed. And that I do know. But let me give you another example. There was an incarnation more recently where I was a leader in an army during the Civil War. And in that incarnation, my soul's purpose was not to understand war or to change others, but to understand for myself, my eternal being, about my true nature in the aspect of learning about pride.
Pride?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know I've studied a lot of my own Akashic records, and one of the trends that I've noticed is that some of the circumstances of my past lives seem connected to some of the circumstances in my current life.
Yeah, so you're saying that there's like a cumulative effect.
Yeah. It's if each life is a little progressive.
And one builds on the other. That's another part of what the guides have said. Each of our incarnations, lifetime after lifetime, is intentional, and it serves to add to our soul's wisdom and is perfectly designed to lead us to an aspect of our own self-realization.
But let's be really clear about this. Does this mean that the universe's intent is that we just keep learning lessons again and again and again for all of eternity?
Well, you raise a good point, and we've yet to speak to the guides on this very subject. But there are many religious beliefs and philosophies out there which state the soul advances to a point of Godhead or God realization. Now, perhaps this could be the level of an ascended master, or it could simply be having reached oneness with Source Creator itself.
I don't think I'm there yet.
Neither am I, that's for sure.
Well, we'll certainly look forward to hearing the guides talk about this in the future.
Most definitely. But what we do know is the idea of the soul's journey of expansion. Your soul expands in its awareness within each and every moment of love and loss, and in each and every of its experiences. And it is with this desire to move towards self-realization, which is the same for all sentient beings, not just humans, as the guides explain.
Consider that there is always the desire in everything, in everyone, for self-realization. There is the desire for self-realization in the choices we make in our careers, in our relationships, in the way in which we live, the way in which we communicate, the way in which we manifest. It is all elements of desire towards self-realization, and this is universal amongst men and women and all living things on your planet and throughout the galaxy.
So we have these individual lives, and we have these learnings to advance our soul in its self-realization in each lifetime. But from a practical point of view, how does all of this knowing impact us right now as we go about our daily lives of raising a family, building a career, or even simply saving to buy a home?
Well, I know that the guides talk an awful lot about perspective. In other words, all those things of our daily lives, our career, our family, our home, from an eternal standpoint, means something a little bit different. Instead of just being the sum total of my current incarnation, each one of my experiences now has an eternal purpose.
Well, we know a lot of people whose families talk about this idea of a well-lived life, who have worked to create a legacy or something that they can feel to leave others after they've passed on, even if that's just the idea of financial wealth. But what the guides are saying about our eternal journey is that it's not about judging the success or failure of this life, but about having an understanding that the experience of this life, the good and the bad, actually serve a purpose. And that purpose is to advance our soul's understanding of each and every circumstance.
Yeah, I know for my life, I spent most of it trying to make the perfect choice so that I had the correct life. I lived that well-lived life, right? So from the school that I chose and the major that I chose and the classes that I took and the activities that I did to the way I tried to move my career and progress it up each step of that ladder, right? The home that I lived in and the family that I had, the whole 9 yards, was really designed to try and do it right. And I realized very soon that I didn't do it, didn't know how to do it right. I couldn't do it right. And so what I did, and I think many people do, is they blamed everyone else for not having a perfect life, as opposed to sort of understanding that we were never meant to have that perfect life.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that.
Hmm.
The guides have more to say on that. They actually say, do not look at your life circumstances as the whole of your experience, for your physical circumstances serve to expand your soul's journey.
Hmm.
And that sure changes the pressure we put on ourselves, doesn't it? That we have to get everything right in this lifetime. Here's what the guides have said in a recent channeling session.
You are coming into a state of consciousness, and we welcome you. We welcome you. We see you, and we sense a beautiful alignment. Coming into an understanding of your true nature. How critical at this time, how critical to finally have the blindfolds taken away, the blinkers removed, the veil lifted. Yes, yes, this is what you seek. This is what you desire. This is what brings you joy, for it brings you closer to a better understanding of who you are, your true nature. Your true nature is aligned with the nature of the universe. And the nature of the universe is love and joy and the highest vibrations.
So the next logical question is, why did I incarnate now? That's a very interesting question. And let's talk about what the guides think about this.
Well, I believe it's because our incarnation offers our soul the most challenges for its growth and expansion.
Yeah, so that means that this incarnation offers the best challenges, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so when we think about some of those challenges that are going on that we came here to participate in, I mean, things like climate change or
Well, yeah,
world.
there's political
Yeah,
unrest, cultural and political tensions,
yep,
economic uncertainty.
yeah, the list goes on and on and on,
It
right?
does.
But it's not just about challenges, right? I mean, it's also about the experiences we're able to have here, the specific time of growth at this moment, right? So many of us have been sensing, especially since 2000 on, that this lifetime is when we're taking a big jump in our evolution, that more and more of us are opening up now to our empathic abilities and connection with others. In fact, here's what the guides have to say about this. The reason why you've chosen to incarnate now is because of the alignment that is occurring now. In other words, this lifetime is a time when we may find new solutions, but far more importantly, it's during this current incarnation that we have an opportunity right now to become conscious of our soul's self-realization, to move toward the higher understanding of increased compassion, affinity, joy, oneness.
Yeah, that really is a lot. So let's take a breath. Ah, well, that feels good. All right, then. And let's see how we can build this into some sort of an understanding of our eternal nature through something like a daily practice.
I love a daily practice.
Me too.
All right. So, having an understanding that I'm an eternal being currently existing in this incarnation as Tom makes me think differently about my own life. It's no longer becomes just about the things we choose to accomplish through our work, finances, or possessions that we've been saying, but more about the big picture of experiencing everything from the larger perspective of our soul's progression. So, one of the ways that I can do that is by changing the way I talk about my own life, getting rid of the one life to live and legacy kind of expressions and talking more about the lessons life is teaching me. And this way I can start to speak every day from an eternal perspective.
Yes, that's interesting. Looking at your life from an eternal perspective, looking at yourself from an eternal perspective, and looking at others from an eternal perspective really does change things. You can practice the way you think about people in your life from this eternal perspective, knowing now that they're just as you are, an intentional being. Now, each of our lives is purposed, and each of our interactions help serve that aspect of our eternal nature, learn and advance.
True. So from the parents that you chose when you incarnated to the driver who cut you off in traffic, you can start to practice looking at them differently as the teachers of your soul, until this sort of becomes a habit for you, knowing that every experience is not there to hurt you or to punish you, but to serve you in your soul's expansion of its understanding. From the demanding boss that gives you a tough time every day, to the parent who appears cruel or distant, each one of these individuals is actually there for an eternal purpose. And that was the intention of their existence.
Absolutely. Well, you know, this one is a difficult one for many of us to understand. You know, Tom, I remember a recent channeling session we did where the guides worked with a client of ours who came to us about a difficult relationship with a parent. Do you remember that one?
Oh yeah, really wounded her.
Yep, absolutely. She described how as a child she felt uncared for and unloved, and she could never really understand why. The client asked the guides why would she be born into such a family which showed her such neglect and gave her such heartache. And the guide's response was really quite interesting. They said that it was for her soul to learn the full depths of compassion.
And that was pretty amazing to us, because really this person was one of the most loving, caring, and sensitive people we knew.
Yeah.
We expressed this to her, and she agreed, saying, "Yeah, this makes good sense to me." She went on to explain that she'd been working on being compassionate her entire life. Because of those experiences, she wanted to be the exact opposite of what she experienced as a child. And you know what? She was.
Yeah, that was very powerful, especially when she realized how that relationship, from an eternal perspective, she herself had chosen, and how that relationship had helped her become the person that she had become today. Now, here's part of what the guides said. Your soul collects knowledge that it shall use across an eternity.
There's another spiritual practice that we can do here, and that's bringing in some mindful meditation around the eternal nature of your soul.
Yes, that actually is the I Am meditation that many have found so powerful to remember. This is practicing the awareness that you are both a finite being in this incarnation with the I, and an infinite, eternal being with the Am. Now, spending time with this remembrance allows for some amazing insights to come forward into your consciousness as you seek this self-awareness. And it can also help diminish the many dramas that we face when we focus in on the mundane too much.
Yes. And there's another practice that goes along with this that's simply about letting go. When you realize the eternal nature, you realize that there's no need to do it all perfectly. Your experiences are just that, they're experiences. There's no one judging you. There's no right way of existing. There's no trophy in heaven, as we like to say often. So give yourself a break. It's not what you do, but what you be. Allow yourself to play in your circumstances, to make new choices, and to expand yourself into the experiences of the higher vibrations of happiness, love, and joy. And do this in everything that you do as often as you can, and we promise you your life will change.
Yeah, you know, that's so wonderful to think about and a great practice to undertake. And that leads us to our next channel message from the guides. Every circumstance, whether it feels at the time like a tragedy or it feels at the time like a victory, every circumstance itself is disconnected to your joy when you allow it to be disconnected. And instead, it can be used to expand yourself.
Wow, that is fascinating to realize that we have that much responsibility, right? So we are just so very grateful that we've had this opportunity to share with you the channeled wisdom from the guides, which they share with us so freely and lovingly. We'd like to leave you with this very special message from the guides, as they also share with our eternal beings what being loved by the energy of Source itself is all about.
Well, that's all from us in this episode.
We'll see you next time.
And so we return as we began, with a breath. We encourage you in this breath to feel the fullness of Source's love for you, Source's adoration, its appreciation for your choice of incarnating now and for your very creation of a soul which is eternal. And take a breath and know how deeply you are loved. And do so as often as you are able. And with this, we are complete.
Coming up in the next episode of The Infinite Pathway. For the latest messages from Thomas, AJ, and the guides, please join them on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, or follow them on Instagram at Speaking From Source. You can also book your personal session with the guides on their website, speakingfromsource.com.